gospel reading today is found in the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 11, starting in verse 16. Please stand for the reading of the gospel. To what can I compare this generation? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling out to others, "We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn." For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, "He has a demon." The Son of Man came, not eating and drinking, actually. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, "Here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners." But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. At that time, Jesus said, "I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. Father, we come to you, for you are good. You are great, and you are greatly to be praised. Who can be compared to you? For you made the heavens and the earth. And when people cry out to you, you hear them. When we cry out to you, you hear us. So I pray that as we listen to your words, that we will listen, that we will have ears to hear. Amen. We'll be looking at this passage from Matthew today, largely. But something comes before it. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. The people who are listening to Jesus, they recognize this phrase. It is very, very familiar to them. They know it. They know its context. They probably, some of them, know the words themselves, and in fact, perhaps the entirety of the passage around it. To him who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, there are three different groups of people that fall under this context of hearing, or, as the case might be, not hearing. The first group are the gods, the idols that dwelt in this land. The idols that people had made with their hands. In the passage we read today, it says they lift it to their shoulders, they carry it, they set it in its place, and it stands there. They cannot move from its place. If one cries to it, it does not answer or save them from their trouble. And again, in Habakkuk, it says, "What profit is an idol when its maker has shaped it? A metal image, a teacher of lies? For its maker trusts in his own creation when he makes speechless idols. Woe to him who says to a wooden thing, 'Awake!' To a silent stone, 'Arise!' Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath in it at all." And perhaps the passage that they would have been most familiar with in regards to the gods. Psalm 115. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but do not speak, eyes, but do not see, ears, but they do not hear. They have hands, but they cannot feel. They have feet, but they cannot walk. And they do not make a sound in their throat. Those who make them become like them. So do all those who trust in them. Those who make them become like them. Idols, they have ears to hear, but they cannot hear. And so we come to the second category of people, which perhaps we're most familiar with. Us, or in the case of them, the Israelites. Even from the beginning, you read in Deuteronomy, as Moses is leading the people to the promised land, but not entering it himself, he declares to them, "To this day the Lord has not given you a heart to understand, or eyes to see, or ears to hear." In Isaiah, it says, "Keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make the heart of this people dull, and their eyes heavy, and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their hearts, and understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed." But wouldn't you want them to be healed? Wouldn't you want them to return? We'll come back to that. Now here at Christ Church, we know the term, the Son of Man, which we read earlier in Matthew. The Son of Man came eating and drinking. And we're most familiar with it in its Daniel context. The Son of Man who sits on the throne beside the Ancient of Days and is given authority. But there is another Son of Man in the Bible, Ezekiel. And he is told repeatedly by God, "Listen to what I tell you. Hear what I tell you. Son of man, you dwell in the midst of a rebellious house, who have eyes to see but see not, who have ears to hear but hear not, for they are a rebellious house." And finally, in the end, Zechariah. Zechariah turns to the people, and in context of the widows and the orphans, the wanderer and the foreigner, he says, they refused to pay attention and turned a stubborn shoulder and stopped their ears that they might not hear. They made their hearts diamond hard lest they should hear the law and the words that the Lord of hosts had sent by his Spirit through the former prophets. The idols, the gods, they have ears, but they cannot hear. And those who follow them become like them. And in Exodus chapter 22, we know that if the people do not take care of those who need it most, the foreigners, the widows, the orphans, then who will get angry? God himself. And so we come to the final person, the servant of God. Isaiah 42, "Hear you deaf, and look you blind, that you may see. Who is blind but my servant? Or is deaf as my messenger whom I send? Who is blind as my dedicated one, or blind as the servant of the Lord?" And it goes on, "Who gave up Jacob to the looter and Israel to the plunderers? Was it not the Lord against whom we have sinned? in whose ways they would not walk, in whose laws they would not obey. And this is the context that everybody hearing Jesus would have known just from these simple words. Whoever has ears, let them hear. And Israel was taken into captivity, but that was 500 years ago, 600 years ago. If you're talking the northern kingdom, 700 years ago. And the people who are standing with Jesus, they know this history also. They know that they turned to idols. They know that they listened to idols who were burdensome. They know that they turned to idols who could not help them. They're writing all of this down in Second Temple literature. That these idols are worthless. They've turned away from them 500 years ago. They know that they have harmed the orphan, the widow. They did not welcome the foreigner. And so they were taken into exile. But they repented. They turned back to God. And of course, God brought them back to the land. That was so long ago. To whom can I compare this generation? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling out to others. We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, but you did not mourn. Who's calling out to who? Is the generation calling out to each other? Are they calling out to Jesus or John the Baptist? Is it John the Baptist or Jesus calling out to the people? It's a little bit confusing. Who is calling out to whom? We've just talked about a very Hebraic concept. To him who has ears to hear, let him hear. And then Jesus does something that is very unusual. He uses Greek poetry. I don't even know if this is done in the Bible outside of this particular passage. Maybe once, actually. I think it's done one other time, but so twice in the Bible. And this is very Greek, and it comes perhaps from a Greek fable. There was a king who was conquering the land around him. And he continued on his journey, and he was conquering land after land after land. And this group of people, they come to him, and they say, "Hi, we'd like to make peace now." And he turned to them and said, "Let me tell you a fable. There's once a king, and he came to the sea, and he played his flute. And he expected the fish to come to him, but they didn't. So he took his net, and he cast it out into the sea, and he pulled the fish in. And once they were on land, well, now they started to dance, as fish will do. And he turns to these people. It's actually, according to Herodotus, Cyrus telling the story. The reason why Cyrus told the story to the Ionians and Aeolians was that the Ionians, who were ready to obey him when the victory was won, when Cyrus had already won his victory, had before refused when he had sent a message asking them to revolt from Croesus. Right? And this fable was passed down in different forms. We see it a little bit here and there in books like Strabo's Geographia, etc. But there is a common denominator. The person giving the fable, the person calling out, is the one in authority. Every single time. It's the one in authority. And Jesus turns and he says, they are like children sitting in the marketplace, calling out to their companions, saying, we played the flute for you, but you did not dance. We sang a dirge for you, but you did not mourn. So who are the children? Well, let's read the passage. Verse 25. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Who is there with him? His disciples. The disciples of John the Baptist. A crowd that has come because they are actually interested in hearing what he has to say. Because when John the Baptist went out, yes, it reads here, for John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And in fact, if you go to the parallel passage in Luke, the next passage that Luke brings up is the story of Jesus being invited to a Pharisee's house, and a woman, a sinner, comes into the house and weeps on his feet and pours perfume on his feet. A friend of sinners. But for the most part, we read that actually most of the people listening to John repent. Many of them do, only in fact a few who don't. Those who mostly are living here in Jerusalem, who have their own power. One might say, their own idols. And the crowd that gathers around, they want to hear from Jesus. And they are listening, and we know for a fact that the early church, well, they were all Jewish. Because they heard, and they listened, and they obeyed. And wisdom is proved right by her deeds. Indeed, the context, again, is John the Baptist, who's in prison, but not killed, because Herod is afraid to kill him, because all the people like him, because they've heard, and they're repenting. Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else? Wisdom is proved right by her deeds, it says in verse 19. Jesus replied, go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me. The disciples are to go out and call out perhaps these children. Listen now while you can. And the other half of this passage that I will talk about is the half about the yoke of God. Because you have these people, they're told to hear, but they have to put on the yoke. There is only one person who is without a yoke. Belial, Bliol. Satan. He's the one without a yoke. And so, as these people are told to listen to the ruler, the one who has authority, they need to put on a yoke. And as we read in our passage in Isaiah, let's compare the yokes that we can put on. Bel bows down. Nebo stoops low. Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. The images that are carried about are burthensome, a burden for the weary. They stoop, they bow down together, unable to rescue the burden. They themselves go off into captivity. And how are these idols made? Well, some pour out gold from their bags and weigh out silver on the scales. They have to put in so much into these idols. All of their gold, all of their silver. They hire a goldsmith to make it into a god, and they bow down and they worship it. They lift it to their shoulders and carry it. They set it up in its place, and there it stands. From that spot it cannot move. Even though someone cries out to it, it cannot answer. It cannot save them from their troubles. That is one of the yokes offered. Burthensome, a burden for the weary. They cause people to stoop and bow down. Not only that, they cannot rescue anyone, they cannot hear anyone, they cannot help anyone. And those who make them become like them. Those who trust in them become like them. And so, of course, when you hear Zechariah, the people who are ignoring, turning a cold shoulder to those who are orphans, those who are widows, those who have little or nothing, of course they cannot help. Of course they cannot hear, because they have become like that which they have made. Things that have ears but cannot hear, eyes but cannot see, hands but cannot feel, feet but cannot move. They're put in a place and there they stay. Unless, of course, you put it on your shoulder, this heavy gold and silver object, and you carry it along with you all day. But it still can't hear you. It's just a heavy burden. That's it. And the other side of it, listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnants of the people of Israel, you whom I have upheld since your birth and have carried you since you were born. People who could do nothing. They have feet, but they cannot walk. They have eyes, but they have trouble seeing. They have mouths, but we can't understand what they're saying. Perhaps, I think they want milk now. I think they're tired now. I think they pooped themselves, right? That's all we can really understand. And God is up there saying, I will carry you. And you start to get older, and you find once again, it's difficult walking. I have feet, but I cannot walk. Your eyesight starts to go away. I have eyes, but I'm having trouble seeing. Where can I hold this so that I can read it? Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he who will sustain you. From birth till death. We don't carry God around. He carries us. I have made you. We haven't made him. I will carry you. We don't carry him. I will sustain you. What are you going to feed an idol? It does nothing. It eats nothing. It has a mouth, but it's not going to do anything. I will rescue you. With whom will you compare me or count me equal? To whom will you liken me that we may be compared? Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. But it is a yoke. It is something that you carry, even while God carries you. The people in Zechariah, they close their ears because they do not want to hear the law of the Lord, because they do not want to follow it. Oh, it's too difficult. Oh, there's so many of them. How can I follow all of them? Oh, this, oh, that. But it's not too far away. It's not too heavy. The yoke of the Lord is light. And I think, if you're anything like me, when you reach out to your idols that you have made, and you start to follow them, do they not become a burden? Do you not feel the weight of them upon your shoulder? And when you turn to God and you ask for forgiveness, and He is faithful, and He is there, and He is willing to carry you, the burden is lifted. And when you love your family, when you serve them, isn't life better than when you're angry with them and not at peace? The burden of the Lord is light. So I want to say two things. First, let us take up the yoke of God. We, unlike Satan, will have a master. We do have a master. And we should choose which master we will follow. And I pray that I will follow God who made me, and not the gods that I myself have made. And secondly, perhaps we should be crying out in the marketplace, saying, "Listen to your King before it's too late."